Welcome to Clarity, the show that brings you what you need to know now in the world of cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. My name is Shira Rubinov, and each show I will be joined by CISOs, as well as cutting-edge companies and executives. We will be covering the most pressing areas in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence today to help you cut through the noise and dissect the very crowded ecosystem we are living in today, bringing you what you need to know now. Today I'm joined by Rinki Sethi, VP and CISO of BIL, and Matthew Rosenquist, CISO at Mercury Risk. Thank you both for joining me today. Before we begin, I would love for you both to introduce yourself to our audience, give them a little background of your career and your journey and where you sit today. Rinki, let's start with you, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rinki Sethi. I'm the CISO at BIL. I lead the security and IT teams there. Been there almost 3 years. I've spent a little over 20 years in cybersecurity now. Worked at PG&E, Walmart, eBay, Intuit, Palo Alto Networks, IBM. Took my first CISO job at Rubrik, my second one at Twitter before joining BIL here. And I sit on the board of Vaulttree as well in the data encryption space. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Rinki. And Matthew, please introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Matthew Rosenquist, CISO, cybersecurity strategist. I've been in the industry almost 35 years now. I did 24 at Intel, but throughout my career, I've been advising and consulting academia businesses and governments all over the world about emerging threats and how we really manage the risks to make technology more trustworthy. And that is my passion.
Well, thank you both very much. Very impressive careers thus far. And I'll say thus far because I know you both are just climbing and shooting through the stratosphere of our cybersecurity world. And certainly your voices should be heard and need to be heard. So today we're going to discuss cybersecurity and artificial intelligence predictions for 2025. We're going to cover what we believe the advancements are in the hot areas that are going to be coming this year, as well as the areas that need serious improvement in order to carry us through 2025. So certainly, as you both know, a lot to unpack here. And I'll start off with discussing the convergence of AI, data, and platform unification. And we know this will impact how cybersecurity defenders and attackers will innovate and operate. Businesses will need to rethink their strategies to address the movement towards unified security platforms, transparent AI, leading to cross-functional alliances, which are essential and advantageous for long-term resilience and trust. So stepping off on that, would love to hear your thoughts, and we'll go from there. So Matthew, please.
So, AI is a tremendously powerful tool. In fact, we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Right now we're focused on the really sexy Gen AI, create videos, create images, mimic sounds and people's voices. But that's one sliver. Right, LLMs and so forth, that's one sliver of deep learning, which is just a piece of machine learning, which is just one small aspect of AI. So we've got a long road to go, and we're already seeing the power of these tools. And because they're powerful, because they're valuable to organizations, there is a rapid adoption of these, probably faster than we should, but there are tremendous benefits. And with all those benefits, with all those new tools and capabilities and services, it brings equitable levels of cyber risk. So we have to understand and embrace both the benefit, but be prepared and think ahead as we also will assume the risks as we adopt these. So it's a brave new world that we're all venturing into, and we all have to proactively adapt to empower everyone.
No, certainly. And as you said, a lot quicker than we probably should be. And we have to be prepared for the different cyber risks. So well said there. Rinki, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the threat landscape is evolving, and I think AI has just kind of increased the amount of disruption that we're seeing. And a lot of the social engineering attacks are much more sophisticated, but not just that. The scale at which they're happening, we're starting to kind of see a lot of impact on that at our companies. And I think that's, as Matthew said eloquently, that we're just kind of, this is just the tip of the spear. And I think we're about to see a lot more and a lot faster, just from a threat perspective and how attackers are leveraging AI. On the flip side, I think it's a really exciting time for innovation as well in the cybersecurity space. And we're just seeing that with the proliferation of LLMs and AI just being in discussions every day, there's new technologies emerging just even this year. And I think companies that are emerging in 2024 really have a unfair advantage over those that existed prior to this because you're building on a tech stack, have different compute power, have different ways to leverage technology, really disrupt the security space. So I think how we're building our security teams and the tech stack is going to look so different starting 2025, and how we upskill cybersecurity practitioners is going to be key.
I love that you mentioned that. And that is a conversation actually I had a couple of days ago with a company, a new emerging company, and they actually discussed the leg up of starting now and fresh. Can you dive into that a little bit, Rinky? I think it would be very important for our organizations to really hear why. And it's almost a layer upon layer to maybe add security, maybe add ability. What do you say to these organizations who say, should we scrap it and start fresh? What is it that you can advise to them?
I think the only way companies are going to survive is if they reinvent themselves for existing platforms that are there. When you think that companies, a lot of large companies, they grow by acquisition, and then they have to integrate those acquisitions. Sometimes, as a consumer, it becomes a really sloppy experience. And if they want to evolve, it takes just moving mountains to be able to get a company to start innovating and make change just because of the decision making and having so many folks. And now there's folks that can literally leverage an LLM that can spit out code and it's just compute power is different. And I think that companies that are innovating right now, they're starting from nothing. So they have no barriers. They don't have to seek any kind of approvals. They're not looking at integrations. They can build from scratch and leverage kind of where AI has even come today and just the tech stack that's available to them. And when we as practitioners are looking as consumers for the products that are out there, it's really sexy, the new innovation that's happening out there. And you're like, man, this could solve a niche problem for me in a really novel way. And it's really lightweight. So it's just totally different approach. And I think we're just going to see a lot more of that.
I love that. Let's dive into that for a moment. Obviously, in the past, let's call it the late 90s, early 2000s, organizations bought by brands because they couldn't be held liable for anything they say. Everybody does that. Obviously, today, as we've moved forward in our security posture and everything, it's looking for the right fit. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, they have to be around and they have to have the right type of technology and the right ability, but we're not looking at the must-have because everybody else is using it. So, Matthew, what would you say to an organization or even your organization itself when you're looking for a solution out there and you have the mainstay players who, let's say everybody's buying, but you see, as Rinky mentioned, maybe a niche player who's solving that specific problem for you? They might not be so well known, but you believe their innovation is really on spot.
It really comes down to what the value proposition is. And that's going to vary. Your value proposition and what you need may be distinctly different than some other sector or even your direct competitor. Again, it depends on your infrastructure. It depends on who's attacking you. It depends on what you're trying to defend and your internal and partner skills, what you already have embedded. Your tool suite may be vastly different than somebody else's. So the strengths and the weaknesses may also vary. And the expectations coming from regulators, your board, C-suite, your profit centers within your company are also going to vary. So it's the role of the CISO to really kind of mix that together and figure out what is the right balance and dial that in. That gives you a good understanding of what types of solutions and services are going to be the most valuable to you. It may be a big established player out there, but it may also be that innovative small company coming up with a niche solution that really meets your needs. But the assessment has to be done. You can't just look at a magazine cover and go, oh, this is a top 5 vendor, I'm just going to buy them and everything will be great. You may be introducing more chaos and reducing the overall effectiveness and value that you have as a security organization. You really have to think through, what are those threats? What are you trying to defend? What are the opportunities that can push you forward to intersect the most relevant risks to you?
Well, very interesting. Let's take that a step further. I'm sure you're both inundated with people reaching out to you. Come look at my solution. Give me 5 minutes of your time, trying to find every which way to try to grab your attention, to show you all their bells and whistles and all their flashy things their companies do. So everybody out there, or the different companies out there, what would you say to them when they're thinking, you know what, I have the right solution for your organization. I did my due diligence, which I'm sure you're very frustrated when they don't and they come to you and it just doesn't fit. Let's say they did their due diligence. They believe they have the right fit. Rinky, how should they approach you if they want to get a few minutes of your time?
Yeah, I've joked about this before, Shira. Like, don't call me Matthew or don't call me Shira. Address me by my name, right? So, and it sounds funny, but it's like so true and happens all the time that I get messages from folks either with like calling me by the wrong name or saying that, hey, I know you have problems at like so and so company that I don't happen to work at. So I think just doing a little bit of homework. I also think it makes a big difference on who they put forward in the message as well. That I love having conversations, especially for smaller companies, with the CEO or the CTO or even sometimes the CISO. I find those conversations really interesting and just deep diving into who the team is and who the founders are, what their background is, what drove them to even build the tech that they're building, as well as, of course, doing a little bit of homework on what my problems might be, although that might be hard for them to know right off the bat. But I like meeting with innovators and disruptors. I think it's important. References also help. Like if another CISO is using their product, or if they refer me and say, hey, Rinky, I'm working with so-and-so company, you should take a look. That's going to help a lot and just have a lot of credibility. But I think those are ways to kind of get your foot in the door with me. I do meet with a lot of cybersecurity companies. I enjoy the innovation and disruption that's happening, but I think that if you don't do your homework at all, and it's going to be like you're not going to get a response back.
So you prefer they don't find your number on the dark web and call you at 2 a.m. just to try to get your attention?
Yeah, phone calls will never work.
Oh gosh, yes, and I've heard all these stories. It's something that organizations really should take note of. How do you want to be approached? So Matthew, diving more into predictions of 2025, where cybersecurity and AI are just vastly changing, coming together, intersecting each other in so many ways for the positive as well as the negative. I know a lot of organizations are super excited about the movement in AI and how it's going to help organizations. What would you say in terms of the cybersecurity space when we're looking at AI and how we are bringing in AI to our organizations in order to do multiple things in order to help us, whether it being strategically for protection as well as defending?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at an arms race here, and this is not new to our industry, but because this technology is such a powerful tool, it can be used for good or for bad, and we're going to see both. Now, unfortunately, the bad guys, they don't worry about quality control. They can move faster. They tend to maintain the initiative. So we see them as Barbara said, no, just kidding, Ricky, using the right name. Anyway.
Isn't her name Tina?
But, as Ricky was saying earlier, right, we're seeing a lot of movement in social engineering, for example. Absolutely, the bad guys are doing that. And that enables them to be able to create much more customized social engineering attacks at scale and then learn from the failures to try again in an automated way. Very powerful. So what we need to see, and what we're starting to see, is we're seeing the counter AI tool to that, to be able to detect those types of social engineering attacks at scale in a dynamic way and be able to block or alert or gather more information as part of an investigation. So we're seeing that. We're going to see another whole level as they start using, the bad guys start using it to create much more malicious code, right? Writing malware, taking vulnerabilities and creating exploits. Well, we now then need the AI tools to counter that at scale, at speed. Because if an attacker can create custom malware very quickly, that's a problem, right? A lot of the kind of signature-based and even some of the heuristics can be avoided by these AI tools. So again, we need to be able to respond at speed. And one of the most exciting areas that I'm seeing in the cybersecurity space for AI is really in security operations, in those front line. And now I built Intel's first SOC, so I turned it on. I understand what billions of alerts every day are like. I'm seeing very innovative vendors, right? Small companies create AI tools to help those frontline security operations be able to separate the wheat from the chaff and identify what are the most interesting issues, distill that down, reduce the false positives, reduce the false negatives, and then automate a lot of the grinding work at that lower level, right? Doing lookups and pulling in references and grabbing other instances and populating tickets so that it can be elevated to get to the right set of eyes. And then forming that in a way that's consistent and comprehensive. So again, the speed of being able to react and triage these things, much better. And I think in 2025, we're going to see every vendor out there that deals with frontline operations adopt AI in this manner, either directly or facilitating the other products that will be doing this type of analysis in an automated fashion, in a smart fashion, learning from itself to make it better and more efficient, basically punching up the security operations capabilities of companies.
Thank you. And Riki, when you're looking at the world, I guess, from a CISO's perspective and in your organization itself, I know CISOs they deal with budgets and budget restraints and not enough of a budget to do everything you need to do. And that's just a CISO's problem in general. I believe in organizations need to have more of bandwidth of able to do what they all need to do. In terms of, I'd say specifically, when you're looking at maybe an organization and thinking about 2025, what would you say is something that CISOs really need to focus on looking into 2025 in terms of spending part of that budget, because it's going to be so important to deal with?
Yeah, I think there's two ways, and asking for budget is, I always say it's like kind of an art more than it is a science, because you're telling a little bit of a story around your cybersecurity program. I think it's really important, especially I think in the next few years. I think it's okay to say, here are the key risks and areas that we need to make further investments in. But I think I don't think this just applies for cybersecurity, because I also lead IT and I'm seeing other areas. I think you have to come back and show how you're going to drive efficiency leveraging AI. And, everybody's sick of talking about that, but it's just, that is the truth of the matter. You are going to have to come back and say, are there certain skills that we can automate and so we can upskill folks that we have? Or are there certain things that we're doing that we can find maybe better ways of doing with tools that are now available, cheaper, better, more efficient? So I think there's going to be the budgeting for FY25. I think you're still going to be spending, and your spend may depend, but I think also there's going to be a question around, can you self-fund? Can you drive efficiencies in certain areas as you're looking at your cybersecurity program?
Very interesting. Well, a lot to talk about and a lot to look forward to in 2025. And before we wrap up, I'd love to get both of your perspectives on a little cybersecurity hint or something around cybersecurity that you find super important for people to take note of, whether it being specifically for themselves personally, an organization, or the world at large. So, Rinki, let's start with you, please. Could be anything.
I think the social engineering attacks are becoming pretty scary. And I think it applies to everybody personally, with your kids, with your parents. I hear so many people talk about their aging parents or grandparents that are getting scammed by just like more sophisticated attacks, even people using deep fake voices and things like that of their own kids. And it's just getting scary out there. And I think the more you can do to ensure you have multi-factor authentication in any of your accounts you care about, but also come up with code words and things like that with your family members, going back to old school ways of doing things, but it works, right? Hey, I'm never going to ask you to transfer money or do any of these things and over phone or text or anything like that. And if I do, let's share a code word that we have to give. And so going back to just fundamentals, and I think everybody in the world is going to be impacted by this. I don't want to see people scammed, and until we have better technological ways of preventing this, I think it's really important to make sure that you have your own kind of plan to keep yourself safe.
I love that. Very well said. And it's so interesting how we're innovating so quickly and moving forward so quickly, yet we have to go back to basics in order to assure it's more person to person, human to human. So thank you for that, Rinki. And Matthew, what about yourself?
I would say that we have to look beyond the tactical issues that we deal with day to day. We can get so caught up in it. And the simple fact is the threats are getting better, more capable, and better funded. The expectations of the regulators and of the board and of the customers and our business partners in insurance, those are going up. So our job gets more difficult. And there's more scrutiny, when we go in and ask for budget. I think the key to moving forward is making sure that we've got a good strategy. If we're trying to live and survive day by day, we won't survive long. We truly have to adapt and have a mindset, a long-term mindset. Otherwise, we're going to fall into this Darwinian situation. So those who are thinking ahead, those who are willing to adapt and realize whatever you were doing 15 months ago, that should be fundamentally changing, right? And that's okay. We are in a constant state of change. We have to be, and that's healthy. We have to get in the right mindset. So we have to think strategically. And that's going to separate the winners from the losers down the road.
Yeah, and very well said as well. Well, Rinky and Matthew, thank you very much for joining me today on Clarity. And I look forward to talking to you again real soon. My name is Shira Rubinoff. Thank you for joining us on Clarity today.